In today's tutorial, we'll knit the Pebble Pop Pillow by Yarnspirations.com. Welcome back to another Yarnspirations tutorial. I'm your host, Kristen Mangus of GoodKnitKisses. Let's get started. In today's tutorial, you'll need a medium number 4 or worsted weight yarn. We're using Caron 1 Pound in color Sunflower. Today's pattern is the Pebble Pop Pillow, and we work the Trinity stitch in here. It's also called the Raspberry stitch. We'll be working with a number 4 weight yarn in the Caron 1 Pound. You'll need a pillow form. The pattern calls for 20 by 20, but I'm actually going to make it in a 12 by 22, and the pattern will work just fine for that. You're going to need a tape measure, scissors, a tapestry needle, and a stitch marker, and most of all, you're going to need your US 9 needles, which is also a 5.5 millimeter. I happen to be using a circular needle today, working back and forth in a flat panel. We are going to work on stitches that are knit and also purl, and then we're going to purl 3 together, but we're also going to work on knitting 1 and purling 1 and knitting 1 all in the same stitch. So you're going from an increase from 1 stitch to 3 stitches. I'm going to show you how to do that. We're also going to finish it off together. So this is a knit along, and we'll work it to sew in the edges for the pillow and then sew up the top after we put in our pillow form. All right, let's get started. To get your free Pebble Pop Knit Pillow pattern, click on the link below to print it or download it today. This pattern uses the Trinity stitch. It's also called the Raspberry stitch. Normally that stitch is a multiple of 4. You'll notice that there's 82 stitches. It's actually a multiple of 4 plus 2. The way that Yarnspirations is doing this pattern, you're going to have a knit stitch at the beginning and the end on the patterning rows. This is a 4-row repeat, and we're going to work that together. I'm going to make a small sample, but in the end I'm going to show you what all 82 stitches look like. We'll also bind off together and sew up the pillow. So keep your eye on that dial, and you can fast forward to that part if you want to see it all together. We're going to work 14 stitches. I'll show you a very easy quick cast on because it doesn't show if you need to do a long tail or not. So we're going to do the backwards loop or the thumb cast on. It's really fast when you want 82 stitches, and it works really well when we're sewing something together. So let's get started on this right now. We're going to do a cast on here of the backwards loop. It's something really quick and fast, and it needs a slip knot. Make it however you're comfortable making your slip knot, and put that right on your needle here. And we're going to start by pulling our yarn out this way, put our thumb down, flip it, and then scoop it up onto the needle. Make sure that's nice and loose, not too loose to where it falls off. We're going to do that one more time. We're going to put our thumb down, flip it, and pop it right on there. We're going to make 14 for my, this is for my small sample, but you'll do 82 for the entire pillow. And if you want to make a different number, you want a multiple of 4 for your main number and then add 2, and you'll be able to get that stitch pattern just right. 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm going to start row 1. I'm going to make sure when we have circular needles to make sure that your yarn is out in front and not trapped inside. The first row is all purl stitches. So if you don't know how to do the purl, we'll do the first couple slowly and then we'll speed that on up. So we're going to go through the front leg of this stitch here. Okay. Then we're going to yarn over and go around that tip of that needle, and you're just going to be pushing that yarn on through over here. Now for a slower tutorial, you can see the links down below in the video down here. Click the links, click the open the description, and find the link for a slower tutorial on the purl stitch. Okay, we're going to go through this leg again, yarn over, and push that on through. Okay, we're going to let that fall off and continue. Now, it's going to look like you have a lot of extra yarn at the bottom here with this backwards loop. I promise with this stitch, it's going to draw up and it's going to be totally fine when you go and do your seaming. So there's not going to be this extra loose cast on. Now this cast on can be a little loose if you're using it for other purposes, but it works really well for this particular project here. Okay, so we're just going to continue on until we get to the end of our row in the purl stitch. Pause your video and meet me back in a minute when you're ready. Row 2 is knit 1, So if you don't know the knit stitch, we're going to go into that front leg between the first and the second stitch. Going to yarn over, and we're going to pull out a loop to the front side and then let that one drop off. Okay, so you've got your new stitch over here. Now we're going to work a knit one, purl one, knit one into the same stitch. It's also called an increase 1 to 3. So we're going to knit into this first stitch here, and without letting it drop off our needle, we're going to tilt it forward, put our yarn to the front just like we will for a purl stitch. I like to hold on to this working yarn here and dip this needle and pick up that front leg just like a purl stitch. Go ahead and work a purl and push it to the back. Don't let it fall off just yet. Go ahead and let your yarn slip back between these two needles. Go ahead and put your finger on this yarn again to hold that loop on, and go in through that leg between the first and the second stitch just like you're knitting again. Yarn over and pull through one more time. You're going to see that you have 1, 2, 3 stitches, and now you can let this one fall off. So got 3 on here and that one original. Now we're going to purl 3 together. Put the yarn to the front again. This is for purling, and we're going to pick up 1, 2, 3 stitches. Okay, then yarn over as to purl and push that 1 back. So we're going from 3 stitches down to 1, and let that drop off. So it's going to put a grouping like that. We're going to repeat that process. We're going to increase from 1 to 3, and then we're going to decrease from 3 down to 1. So we've got knit 1, purl 1, knit 1 into the same stitch, and then we have purl 3 together. So here we go. Do that one more time slow. Knit 1, pull it out, yarn front, purl that same stitch, push that to the back, put the yarn to the back, hold that on there, knit that stitch, yarn over, pull it through, and let that drop off. Okay, yarn front again. We're going to pick up these stitches, 1, 2, 3, purl, push that to the back, let it drop off. You've just done 2 repeats of that stitch pattern. Go to the back, they're going to yarn over, do the knit stitch, pull it forward as to purl, put that in there, purl it, push it to the back, put our yarn to the back again between these 2 stitches here. That's all I'm doing. And then we're going to hold on to this, knit that stitch, push it on through, and let the old one drop off, and you've got the 3. Then we're going to put our yarn front again and purl. So we're just continuing that process. We got all 3 of these together and purl together. All right, and then let that drop off. If you see, you've got a series of 1, 2, 3, and then a 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1. So these are our stitch patterns, and then this is a knit one at the front and a knit one at the back at the end of this row. So we're going to put a yarn to the back again, knit that stitch, and you have just done a row 2. I'm going to turn that around and pause your video and come back when you're ready if you're doing the larger sample. And now we're ready for row 3, which is a purl. We're going to go ahead and put our stitch in, put our needle in here, and we're just going to purl across. All these same stitches stay where they are. There is no increasing or decreasing on this row. So the right side of your fabric is going to have all these raised bumps for the Trinity. So if you would like to be able to know what is the right side, I'm going to stop right here and show you what I do with my stitch marker. Okay, I've got my stitch marker. I'm going to go ahead and just put it in the front of the stitch here. And that tells me that this is my right side. And whenever you see this green here, or your stitch marker color, you'll know that that side is to purl. You're going to continue going until you're at the end of your row. Pause your video and I'll meet you back up when you're ready for the last row repeat, which is row 4. Okay, so we're on the 4th row. Just as I was talking about earlier, on the 2nd row, that first stitch is always going to be knit. Now, I want you to examine your work. This is what you're going to do to ensure that you're not on the wrong thing, because after a while you're going to memorize this pattern. It's very simple, but it's easy to get tripped up if you don't pay attention to this first set here. So when you come to this set here, you see these 3 stitches here. When you pull it back, you can see that there was that little gap. If I come down here, you can see that there's these 3 stitches that are pushing together here, and then I've just got 1. So it's like a set of 3 and then 1. So when you see these 3 together that are all spread out, we want to squish them together with the purl 3 together. So we're going to go yarn front. So that first, the stitch after that first one is purl, P3 tog, which is purl 3 together. Okay, now I'm going to put my yarn to the back. And now I want to increase this 1 stitch from 1 to 3. And you can tell because it's the one where they were all purled together before. So we're going to knit this stitch, put our yarn to the front, purl the stitch, put our yarn to the back, knit the stitch, and then let it fall off. And then I've got the 3 again. So it just alternates. Put the yarn front, purl 3 together, okay, yarn to the back, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, okay, and then purl 3 together, okay, yarn to the back, and you've got this last one here. This again has the 3 together here, so we're going to make this an increase. So we knit, purl, and knit. Finish it off with the last knit stitch. Okay, and then pause your video and come back. Okay, so you have done all 4 of your repeats, your 4-row repeats. You've got another purl row to do because you're back on your right side with your stitch marker, and you can see how they look like little miniature baubles or raspberries. This Trinity stitch is what they call it, and they're offset. Do you see these little bubbles here? And so your pattern is going to continue to have these little bubbles. Now, if you don't do the knit at the beginning and the end, if you make your pattern without that, then you will have an outward bubble here. So when you go to sew up your pillow, it won't sew together as easily as I'll be showing it. But you can make this in a repeat of 4 plus 2 if you want to change the size. Okay, so just continue on your pattern, and I'll meet you back up and I'll show you it all together in 82 stitches, and you'll see what this large piece looks like. Okay, I'm on the end of my right side row where I'm ready to finish. I've got the 82 stitches wide, and when I measured and put my pillow form on it from the cast on edge to the top up here where I'm finishing, that is about 23 inches, which works for the pillow form that I have. And so I'm ready to bind off. I'm just going to turn it around, and we're going to start the bind off right now. Okay, to bind off, I'm going to make sure that my circular needle is underneath here. So I've got my free yarn. It's on the outside of my circular needles. We're going to go around. We're going to work knit stitches on the first 2 stitches. Okay, and then we're going to lift this back stitch over the front. And then we're going to do that again. Make another stitch, wrap it. So we've got 2 knit stitches. We're going to take this back stitch and go over the front. Knit again. Take the back stitch over the front stitch. So we've bound that off. We're going to continue going all the way across in just a basic standard bind off or cast off, depending on where you live. And then we will be done with that part, and we'll move on to the next step. See you in a moment. We're coming to the end of our bind off. I've got one last stitch here. We're going to knit that stitch and lift the back loop over the front just as we have before. And you can just fasten this off by pulling it out and going ahead and cutting your thread here, cutting your yarn and pulling that. And then that will finish that off, and we will need to address this a little bit later. And what we want to do now is take our wrong sides and put them together like so. So take these two sides together, and we are going to sew up the ends. So this side here and this side here are going to get sewn up together, and you're going to want your wide-eyed tapestry needle here and some extra yarn. Okay, I'm ready to sew up these ends here, and this pillow is going to be whatever pillow form you decide. Mine is actually going to be a 12 by 24. I'm going to measure out a little over a yard here, about 3 times the length that I'm going to need to sew it up, and then I add on about another 12 inches or so, 6 to 12 inches, it doesn't matter, just something a little extra. And then I'm going to go to the opening here and I work my way towards the fold, because I know it folds in half really well, but I want to make sure that my ends are on my corners are lined up nice and neat. So I'm going to get right in on the corner here and just go through, pick up 2 stitches on this corner and pick up 2 stitches on this corner. Okay, and make sure those are in there. Pull all my yarn through until I have a nice little tail. I'm going to crisscross and go back up through there and then cross over it a little bit here just to get that in there nice and neat. And then I'm going to come around, and on this pillow it does not state which kind of a stitch to do, so I'm actually going to do a whip stitch, and it'll look nice and straight here, and you will notice the edges on them, but it'll close these up nicely to where it's not so bumpy here, and it'll be just a nice even look. Make sure these tails are out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to go through these edge stitches here and then through the edge on this side. And through this side, sometimes it'll look like you can only pull up through 1 and then you can pull up through 2 on this side because of that bump here. That's okay, as long as you're doing it evenly. Make sure all these stitches are going to line up. And continue sewing along. We just got our tapestry needle. This is a very blunt one. So if you find that you're splitting your yarn because you're using something that's too sharp, be sure and get a blunt tapestry needle or yarn needle. And then you're going to continue sewing this edge up, and then you're going to sew the other edge up. And this is what this will look like on the end here. Okay, and I'll join you back at the end to finish off this corner, and then we will close it up after putting the pillow in. Okay, I'm down at the end. I'm going to put that last bit in. I'm going to go back underneath a few of my stitches here just to lock that in. And then I want to go inside my pillow and make sure that it's nice and secure, and I can hide my tail in there. I can also flip it inside out and cut that as well, or just let it sit there. I like to get it in to where it's, I know that it's stuck inside the stitches, so I like to weave it in behind the back of the stitches on the inside. Careful not to poke through to the other side. And we can pull that inside out and see how it's just going through the fabric and not preventing it from opening up. And then go ahead and cut that off. And then now we've got this end here, and then we've got this other side. You'll want to repeat it on the other side. I've already done it here, and then I'll show you how to handle these ends here. And I go ahead and take care of these ends first because we're going to sew it up, and it's easier to take care of these extra ends on both sides before you start sewing this other area. You're going to have the pillow in its way. So I want to make sure that this is all connected here. So I want to go back up on itself, kind of make a circle and get that stitch to complete that. and make sure this is nice and secure. There's no gaps in my pillow. And then run through the back of these stitches here for good measure. Make sure it's nice and locked in. And go back on some of these stitches here and lock it in. And once I've got several inches in, I'll go ahead and snip my yarn. Go ahead and finish the rest of your tails and meet me back in a moment and we'll put our pillow in. Okay, so I have got my pillow and I put it in here. I went and held on to the corner inside and I pushed it to the corner here, kind of pulled on it and done that the same over here and got it all tucked in. And so now I've got my pillow where I can just sew it up. We're going to sew it in the same way that we just did. And you can sew it with the whip stitch here, or you can try a mattress stitch and try and mask it as much as possible. I like the way that these worked out, so I'm going to do it. It kind of reminds me of like a welting cord on here. So I think it looks really nice, and we're going to do a whip stitch and just the way you did a while ago, and I'll show you what it looks like in the end. So we're going to go right into this corner here, and it's already put together for you, so don't miss it though. Let's make sure and keep it a nice sharp corner. Pull through all your yarn. I measured out about 4 times the width on it, or 4 times the length on here, just to make sure I've got it. And I don't like to tie a knot here. I like to weave this in later, and then I don't have any hard knots. So we want to crisscross this and let it go in this side and this side. Pull all the way through. And then go through those 2 stitches there and pull it all the way through. Get my tail out of the way. And you just keep pinching these together and holding it and making a whip stitch. All right, continue, and I'll meet you back at the end. We're at the end of our pillow on the last couple of corner stitches. And then just go back over those stitches one more time. And then start weaving in to the inside of this cording here that the edging that you've gotten through. And you can just pull those stitches on through there. And then I like to pull it through one more time here, another spot, and then we'll just cut that off. And that yarn will work right inside. You've got your pillow form all in here. It is totally encased, and it's a beautiful, comfy pillow. Well, I hope you've enjoyed your Pebble Pop knit pillow from Yarnspirations.com. On behalf of Yarnspirations and Good Knit Kisses, I'm Kristen Mangus. Happy knitting. Bye-bye.